Hey y'all, welcome back to the Blade Lab. Today I have for you some serious gourmet shit. Don't you love that sticker? Came in this box with this knife, which is the Anso of Denmark Toko knife. This is a pretty new mid-tech knife produced by, obviously, Anso of Denmark. And let me go into that a little bit. I'm not going to go into all of the packaging here. Suffice it to say that this pretty nice box came in an even bigger box from Anso, and inside of this box is a smaller box that had the knife in it, and also the COA card. So this will give you the basic information. The blade steel is RWL34. It has a zirconium backspacer, which was an option I opted for. The color is gray satin, so not anodized. It is number 217, so a relatively new model. And this one itself is practically an infant, born in February of 2025. There we have that again. So yeah. Jens Anso. If you aren't familiar with him, let me give you a little bit of background. He, I believe he was an industrial designer by training. He got into building custom knives, full customs, I guess, about 25 years ago, and did that with some success. And then about 10 years ago, he teamed up with Jesper Voxnes and I think Jim Wright, who is more on the financial end, and the three of them decided to form giant mouse knives. Sorry. So according to Jens, the impetus to start Giant Mouse was that he and Voxnes were sort of wanting to do knives that were more available than their one-off customs, but they also wanted to have sort of more control over the design and manufacturing process than they had just using OEMs who were sort of extant at the time. So they formed Giant Mouse, and they did a lot of work together and made some really cool knives. But just recently, Anso decided to set off on his own, and essentially for kind of the same reasons that he got involved with Giant Mouse to begin with, which was that he wanted to do sort of, in this case, instead of doing sort of commercial manufactured knives with more control, he wanted to do something closer to his customs, but with more control. So with that move, he's still doing full customs, sort of on his own, and that, I guess, is just under his own name. That would be, Jens Anso Custom. But he also started Anso of Denmark, which is more of a sort of mid-tech firm, and specifically he has 3 employees who basically run the machines that make the parts for his knives. He designs all the knives himself still, and in fact he also still has a hand in the sort of quality control, and he sharpens every single one of these knives before they go out the door, and in the process, of course, also does a quality control check, since he's handling the knives before they're put in the boxes. So that will be my sort of quick intro to Anso of Denmark. He has Jens Anso has a YouTube channel where he goes into much more detail about this, and also about the design and development of this particular knife, if you are interested after watching this. So about the Toko. Toko is actually a Japanese word, apparently, which means everlasting. And according to Jens, that sort of references the sort of classic sort of styling of the knife, and also, just the quality control, so such that it will be timeless and something that you may want to pass on to your children or other relatives or whoever you want to. So yeah, he spent about 6 months to a year, I think, just designing this particular knife. He has recently moved to a different sort of design strategy, I guess, where he's always sort of designed on paper and in CAD, but he only recently acquired a light table, which has, I guess, aided him in doing drawings, paper drawings. And so he decided that he wanted to spend more time every day actually on paper designing knives, and that is what he did. So he set aside, I think he said it was like an hour and a half or somewhere along those lines, every day to just sit down and do design work. And this is the culmination of all of that design work. I think it is freaking beautiful, personally. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments. More specifics about the knife. It is, let me show you here. Well, you've already seen that on the COA, but it's RWL 34 steel. A little on that. RWL 34 is essentially the same formula as, well, I guess 154 CM, except that it is a powder form steel. It is produced by the Danish steel company. So I'm sure you're probably familiar with Danish steel and their sort of fancier Damascus blades. And not everyone is aware of the fact that they also make just sort of mono steels like RWL 34. Mono steel, I don't know if that's an actual word, I'm just saying non-Damascus steels. So RWL 34 is actually, I guess, one of the steel components of many of their Damascus steels. It is a good steel, RWL 34. It's sort of very well balanced. It has good toughness, good edge retention, and pretty good stain resistance. So it covers all the bases. It's not extraordinary in any particular one of them, but Jens has said that he considers it an excellent knife steel. Just showing you off a few of the details here. The back spacer, which includes a lanyard loop. Hard to see. There you go. There's a pretty clear shot. RWL 34 is it's interesting. I was just reading up on Knife Steel Nerds, which I highly recommend. YouTube channel and website. It started out, 154 CM started out as a steel for bearings, which was developed because they were looking for a metal that was good, had good hot hardness, and 154 CM is that. And then, of course, this is the powder form, which gives it a finer grain structure and thus better toughness. So we can wrap up too much talk about the steel. The website contains no information about the hardness of the steel. I tested it at 63 HRC. That testing was done with a Lieb tester, so insert your skepticism here. 63 HRC is about as hard as RWL 34 will go, as far as I can tell. The handles, of course, are titanium, and these are made on Haas CNC machines. And you can see this beautiful very fine diamond milling pattern that it has on there. And on the button, this is a plunge lock. Hopefully you can see that. I'm not sure if you can, but it has this very, very cool sort of concentric circle milling pattern on that. The pocket clip is a milled clip, which is quite attractive, and I'll talk more about that going forward also. So what attracted me to this knife was really the aesthetics, initially. I guess that's pretty much always the case, unless it has some sort of exotic steel. But I think it's just sort of a gorgeous sort of take on a classic knife design. It is simple. I guess you could call it a minimalist design. There's not a lot of ostentation to it, but it just has a very nice flow. It's very clean. I don't know how else to say it. I just think it's really pretty, honestly. The blade has the logo on it, and I've already showed you on the other side a very small steel marking, and that is all of the billboarding that is on the knife, at least on the outside. There is some writing on the inside. Well, I have some photos, so I'll show you that of the inside part. On the inside, you can see some extensive weight relief, which is really cool. Anso was quite proud of the sort of artistic nature of the weight relief here, and you can see a few other things. Notably, he is using skiff bearings. Those are not installed by me. Comes from the factory with skiffs, so that's really cool. You can see basically the construction. It's the pivot screw and 3 screws holding the frame together. One thing to make note of, if you get one of these knives and take it apart yourself, is that one of the 3 T8 screws is ever so slightly longer than the other 2, and that is the screw that fits. It's going to be on the opposite side of the clip, of the knife from the pocket clip. So one cool feature is that the diamond pattern on the outside of the knife is actually mirrored on the inside, on the bottom of the weight relief cutouts. Let's talk about, well, the blade. Obviously, you can see it for yourself. We can try to classify it. It is it's almost a straight back, but it's not quite. Let's see if we can put this on something so you can see. It drops down just a hair, but pretty much a drop back. So, I mean, a straight back knife. So it has a nice amount of straight section for cutting cardboard or sort of long cuts, and then a good amount of belly for cutting on a cutting board or that sort of work. So it's going to be a good general use EDC design, and that, I think, is what Jens had in mind when he designed it. Let's get into some of the specifics of the size of the knife. So it is overall almost exactly 8 inches long. The blade is 3 3/8 inches long. The cutting edge is also 3 3/8 inches long. Closed, it is 4 3/4 inches. The blade stock is 0.118 inches, or 3 millimeters, so just a little narrower than average, I would say. As I received this from factory, it was 13 thousandths of an inch behind the edge, which is nice and thin, and beyond that, it was that thin with a factory edge that is 15 degrees per side. So real cool. So that means that I don't have to, I actually like 15 degrees per side is my sort of my favorite angle. Normally when you get a production knife, it will come with a edge angle that's somewhere between 20 and 25 degrees, which means when you drop it down to 15 degrees, you're going to get a much wider bevel. When you get a knife that's already thin and already at 15 degrees, that is not a problem. You're going to be able to maintain that nice skinny edge bevel. And that also brings up an important point, which is one of the things that helps you keep a nice narrow edge angle is a hollow grind. And this knife has a nearly full hollow grind. It's kind of hard to show it off, but I assure you that it is, and it's actually a very interesting aspect of this knife. Jens Anso went to the Chris Reeve Knife Factory in Idaho, and he did a tour. I guess he knows Tim Reeve from the knife shows and just being in the business for decades. And as Tim was showing him around, one of the things he demonstrated to him was their cup milling machine, which they use to create hollow grinds. What that is essentially is it's a milled blade grind, but it's using this sort of cup. He showed some photos of it on his video, but I couldn't exactly make out how it's used. But it is used to make the hollow grind. And what's sort of wild about it is that basically they use that as a tool inside of a Haas mill. So it's not your normal way of making a hollow grind, in other words. And I'm not sure who, if anyone else besides Tim Reeve and now Anso is using that method. But Jens was very grateful to Tim for showing him that, and he was super excited about it when he saw it. And he, I guess, went back and immediately started making plans to implement that grinding method himself. And as he explained it, he went out and had to buy another $75,000 Haas CNC machine, which he is now got almost strictly dedicated to doing hollow grinds. And he's intending to do these sort of cut milled hollows on all of his future Anso of Denmark mid-tech knives. So pretty interesting, I thought. With that, let's move on to just some size comparisons. I'll just throw out my normal couple. So this is a Spyderco PM2, and interesting, they are about the same length overall. The Toko has quite a bit more cutting edge, and my other sort of standard is the Benchmade Bug Out, which is considerably smaller than the Toko. So let me move this down a little bit. So in addition to doing those knives, which I think people are probably familiar with, let me throw in a couple that I think are sort of analogous to, in terms of, in the same general price category and also kind of similar in size. Let me just clean this off. So this is a Grimsmo Rask, and this is a Machine Wise Sonora. And as you can see yourself, the Toko is just about the same size as the Rask, and it's a little bit bigger than the Sonora here. I'll throw one more in, and that is the SPK Lamia, which is a little bit smaller also. So I think the Toko is fitting in this group, not just because of prices, but it is in the same general area. but also just because of the extreme quality, basically, of all these knives, the very high quality manufacturing. Out of all the knives in my collection, I think the Sonora is probably the best comparison. They are both button locks, of course. They are both mid-techs, of course. They're both made out of with full titanium handles, except for this little brass inlay here. There are a couple differences. So this is the machine-wise is MagnaCut. This is RWL34. The machine-wise is an integral button lock. They're both plunge locks, however, and this has the sandwich construction with the back spacer. They both have the milled pocket clips. One of the big differences in terms of the experience of the two knives, for me, is the thickness. So I will tell you that my general bias is that I am not a lover of super thin knives, especially when they're relatively narrow, in this direction. And that's why I really prefer the ergonomics of the Toko to the machine-wise. The machine-wise is about 0.42 maybe. Let's see. We can just look. So yeah, it's about 0.4 inches thick, which is pretty darn thin as knives go. The Toko, on the other hand, is, what would you say that is, about 0.524, something like that, which is a little bit on the thicker side, as typical EDC knives go. And to me, that is a real bonus, because it feels freaking great in the hand. It's more hand-filling for sure than the machine-wise, which, although I like the knife generally, it just always feels too small in my hand. I'm just be honest about it. It feels too small for my particular hands. The Rask is similar in that it's also about 0.4 inches, but it's a little more hand-filling than the Sonora, just because it is a wider knife, in this direction. So it fills the hand a little bit better than the machine-wise. But the Toko is the best of the three as far as my preferences go ergonomically. Speaking of ergonomics, there are basically no hot spots with this knife. You also are able to choke up on it because although it has a flipper tab, it is very low profile, as you can see. So when you open it, you have a pretty good flat spot here that's comfortable, really, to hold this way. So if you want to get right up behind the edge and just go to town that way, you can certainly do that. You can do the reverse Slarpy knife fighting grip. You can do the pull zip tie cutting grip. Basically any sort of grip you want. It's a very comfortable knife to hold and a good all-around user type knife. While we're comparing these two, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to crap on the machine-wise, which I like a lot also. But another thing I prefer about the Toko is the detent. And of course, neither of these are both, as I said, plunge locks, so they don't have ball detents, but they have blade retention, which is accomplished through sort of pressure of the plunge lock on a little depression in the blade. Anyway, it's what retains the blade when it's folded, and it's what provides resistance so you can flip the knife open. And generally, the greater the resistance, the more you're able to sort of build up pressure before the detent will break, and that is satisfying to most people, I think. You know, you want to have a nice clean break. That's what makes a good action. There's a stiffer and I think cleaner detent on the Toko than there is on at least my copy of the Sonora, which this one I can quite easily fail. Like that. Which is not to say that that I fail it when I'm using it, because you can just flip it right out very easily. There's so little resistance in the pivot due to the bushing system that it just flies out really with any sort of serious effort to open the knife. But the Toko is hard to fail. I mean, I can fail it if I'm really trying, but it is hard. It's quite snappy. And I would put this Toko button lock detent right up there with the best, if not the best, of any of the button locks that I have handled. I think some of the best ones are the ProTech Malibu is very good. I think this is better. Wii has some really good button lock action. I don't know that this is better, but it's certainly right up there. It's yeah, I'm going to say it's as good or better. Okay. What else do we have to talk about? We could talk about the sharpening choil. So this is an okay sharpening choil. I will call it pretty good. You're probably going to get 2 or 3 sharpenings. You can see it really does come really right up to the sharpened edge, but it's pretty shallow at that point. So I think you're going to get 2 or 3 sharpenings before it starts to smile noticeably. That's okay. I would like to see it better, but it is what it is. Let's go on to the pocket clip in terms of functionality. I already mentioned that it is a good clip, unless you have like very thick seams, and I do have some shorts that do have very thick seams, and in that case, the rise at the end of the clip is pretty short. It's not the angle, it's just sort of the length of it. So it does sort of jam into the seam of my pocket on my really thick seam pants. It's far from being the worst in that respect. I can get it in my pocket with one hand, which is sort of the sort of cutoff for me. It has good retention, and any sort of normal pants that don't have sort of double seam pockets, it works really well. So yeah, I'm going to definitely give it a pass on the functionality of the pocket clip, and looks wise, I think it's attractive and it's sort of comfortable in hand, so that's good. We can talk while we're looking at this here. We talk about the hardware. The pivot is it's not well, it is free spinning. Wasn't a problem when I disassembled the knife. I was just able to hold one side with my finger and it opened up, no problem. This is a T15 hardware, and these are T8s. These are all T8s over here. I just took it apart from this side because, of course, there are no screws to take it apart over here. What else? While we're talking about the pocket clip, you can see that it's not a super deep carry, but it's also not a shallow carry. Oh, God, my thumb is a horror story, isn't it? Yep. Acoustically, I like the way it sounds. Let me put it up here. You're going to see, you're hearing it, and I can show you, but it does tend to sort of bounce when you bring it down. It doesn't always get sucked right up into the body. yeah, I'm okay with that. As long as you're aware that it happens, you can just pop it back in. It can be a problem if it's a knife that just does that rarely, and you might try to put it in your pocket without realizing that the blade isn't all the way in. But with this one, you just basically figure out pretty quickly that you have to just sort of push it to make sure it's in there. I forgot to mention when I was talking about the aesthetics that it has this fairly unique sort of palm swell here, where the whole, first of all, the whole knife is very nicely contoured, which is part of what makes it so comfortable in hand. But then it has this really cool palm swell here, where these basically two angles meet here, and it creates this sort of defining line, which I guess is also matches up with the curve, sort of the meeting of these two angles on the back, or forms this angle in the back, and this line comes down here. And I think that just gives it a real sort of visual interest on what is otherwise a fairly unadorned knife. And to me, that's really visually what sort of, I guess I would call it the icing on the cake. If it didn't have that, you might say, it's nice, it's pretty, but it's a little too plain. But you take this out, and you're like, oh, well, that sort of breaks it up and just makes it, gives it a little more visual interest. So I love that. I'm going to wrap this up real quick and say I really like this knife. It's going to be a permanent part of my collection, as are most of my knives, but I would say it's highly recommended. It is, of course, far from inexpensive. You can order them if you want one from Anso of Denmark. His weight, there are different configurations as well. He's got a couple, or maybe one sort of anodization option for the scales. I think it's a kind of a bronze. You can get different anodization of the hardware, and you can get, I think I said, a titanium backspacer, which is a little cheaper than the zirconium backspacer. The wait is 2 to 4 weeks, so really super reasonable in my opinion to have a knife built mostly to your spec. He's just very recently started doing some drops on his site too of knives that are fully assembled, and you won't have, of course, any wait for those except for shipping, so you might keep an eye out for that. I will, with that, close up my review bag, and I thank you for coming by. And if you enjoyed the review, I would ask you to hit that thumbs up button down below. That helps me out. And if you like the kind of content I'm doing, then why not subscribe? It's free. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.